This week on Erotic Awakening, Polyandry House, ethical BDSM porn, and Star Wars meme explained.
Welcome to Erotic Awakening, an exploration of all things erotic. If you are offended by adult topics or prohibited by law, we recommend you stop listening right now.
We want to thank all of our patron supporters.
Head over to patreon.com/Erotic Awakening today and get your bonus content and support the show.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Dan.
And get to listen to episode 700. That one went out to patrons only as a way to say thank you.
We talk about all the naughty stuff and the racy stuff on that 700. So, yay. Yep. Going out to patrons tomorrow.
Yeah. Depending on when you listen to this, either in the past or the future,
Exactly.
that might change that date. Dawn, one of the interesting aspects of our life is there was a point where you and I and a partner that I had named Karen all kind of lived together in the same house.
Right. Yeah, for like 6 years.
But it wasn't truly it was the Poly Unicorn house, but we were not living there as a threesome per se.
No, it was more of a V.
More of a V. We just happened to share the same roof and we shared some space together.
And a puppy dog.
And a puppy. But that's not true what a polyandry household looks like. Fortunately for us on the podcast today, we have Goddess April, Rickie, and Steve, who actually have lived together for many years in a polyandry household. First off, guys, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So my very first question is, I know what polyamory is. What is polyandry?
It was originally to protect like a family's wealth. So what would happen is like one brother would marry a woman and they all, in essence, married the same woman. And that was to kind of keep the wealth, like lands and stuff, within a family. So I have Rickie and Steve, and then I have another partner, Ryan, who isn't here. And I'm actually married to Ryan. I'm not legally married to Rickie and Steve. And we kind of operate in a V situation too. None of them interact in any sexual manner with each other.
Oh, okay. So kind of like you're the hub of the wheel and they're the spokes.
Yes.
Cool.
So I guess ooh boy, I can't say the word all of a sudden. Don, do some editing of me stumbling on polyandry.
Maybe.
Yes. Is this idea of, in your case, it is a woman with more than one husband. Would you say that way? Or do you not like that language?
No, and actually that's fine because, and there's other caveats to it, but Rickie is collared to me, and then Steve is my property. I actually own him.
Okay.
Nice.
And Ryan, who's, like I said, legally my husband, is in transition. So I'm at some point, while legally Ryan will still be my husband, I'll refer to Ryan as something else, but Ryan is more a kinky person, not really into the power exchange stuff.
So your household setup is a mixture of power exchange and non-power exchange.
Yes.
Sounds familiar. We've been in that situation. We understand that. So let me start off by asking Rickie. So Rickie, how long have you been part of this situation? And if Ryan was already there, what was the draw for you to join into this situation?
Okay, a couple things. Ryan was not there. I was the first of this family.
Hey, Steve, guess what question is coming your way soon? But go ahead, Rickie.
I got it.
So I was drawn to Miss April, first of all, and came to her, and it was 13 years now?
Yeah, 13 years.
I think 13 years ago. So I'm the longest one of the three of us.
And we were together, and then we had kind of broken up, and then kind of opened the discussion of like doing poly.
Yes.
So that's kind of how all this kind of grew out of our initial power exchange relationship.
I had introduced, or at least I guess introduced the idea of her having other men.
But why was that, Rickie? Why was the idea of other men showing up were you trying to say, I want to be polyamorous because I have other interests, or I want to be polyamorous because I want you to have other people around?
No, the second was because I wanted her to have other satisfactions,
Mhm.
Okay.
other opportunities to get what she needed, other than me, and that was fine with me.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, Steve, you knew this was coming. I hope you had a chance to think about it. How long have you been in this situation, and what drew you into something that is an existing dynamic already?
Right. So it's been 10 years. We're all pretty long standing here. And I met Goddess April at a kink event briefly, and then had a little longer talk at another event a month or two later. And we started doing some corresponding on FET. And at that point, I knew that she kind of had Rickie in her life, but no idea the parameters of the relationship. And so we, for lack of a better word, in the BDSM world, we kind of started dating. And I was immediately smitten, and she was very good at drawing me in. So and when I found, kind of where we were and what her relationship was, and how everything was going to set up, that was fine with me, because it was fine with both of them, and because I loved April so much.
Okay, good deal. April, how do you manage this from and let's just start from a logistical perspective.
Wait.
Do
I
you-
got one more question though.
I've got questions. Good.
But this one's along that one. So there's a third.
There's a third, Ryan.
And how long have they been part of this bundle?
So Ryan and I have been together 7 years this year, married 6.
Wow. So 7, 10, and 13. So
Yes.
long-term polyamory is absolutely possible.
That's a spoiler for another show
For
coming up,
another
isn't
show
it?
coming up, yes. What is
April,
that foreshadowing?
how
Sorry.
do you manage this from a logistical perspective? For example, I mean, do you like have a Google Calendar that says Steve gets to sleep in my bed on Tuesday and Rickie's on Wednesday, and Thursday I get to sleep by myself? Or is there something smarter than that?
Logistically balancing, I like to say this. I always joke that I need a personal assistant to just help me do my stuff, because I have to balance 4 adult calendars.
Mm-hmm.
Besides elderly parents who we're all now helping to take care of, and everybody else's families. I'm fortunate in that I have no children. All 3 of my partners do have adult children and grandchildren or grandchildren on the way. So there's lots of families to balance. When it comes to sleeping arrangements, that's like a favorite question of my mom's. She likes to try and ask that question all the time. And she usually gets Steve alone and tries to ask him how this works.
She knows I'm the weak link. I'm gonna
Yeah. And so usually what happens is this: Steve usually sleeps with me during the week. When Ryan's here, Ryan sleeps with me in the bed. Oh, yeah, I already explained that about how so I did explain that, right? That Ryan's not here.
Yes.
Because
So
he-
Ryan,
okay.
I don't know.
I don't think so on the podcast. We know
Yeah,
because we know
okay,
you.
so Ryan he lives in another state, like Sunday night through usually Friday morning for work. So logistically, it's not feasible for Ryan to be in the house with us and being able to work. So Ryan stays with a family member during the week and comes home every weekend. And, during holiday weeks, sometimes like Christmas and stuff, we'll drive back and forth because it's not too bad. It's about an hour and a half, 2-hour ride one way. So to do that every day is just logistically kind of not feasible.
Sure.
So yeah, so back to sleeping things. So Steve usually gets every night when Ryan's not here. Ryan automatically trumps everybody. Rickie sometimes sleeps with me, sometimes doesn't. Rickie also works out of town a lot too. So I don't even know how that happened. Oh, because for a while, Rickie used to sleep in the room with us, with Steve and I, but slept on the floor. And then it just grew into Rickie now has a spot in the, like, we have a basement that's very unfinished and rough.
Well, it was a
Too.
slave quarters to
Yeah.
start. That was the idea when
Yeah.
it started.
Yeah, we have like it's barely a step above a cellar basement.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
Yeah.
that's where Rickie sleeps.
Okay.
And Steve, and when we first got together, Steve used to sleep there in these big giant dog cages that I have.
That's what I thought I heard Rickie say, is that it was slave quarters.
Yes, yes.
So between slave quarters and dog cages, if that's your thing, that would really work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Rickie, I feel like we have known you and April for at least 13 years. So I'm a little surprised you guys have only been together for 13 years, but I feel like we've
close
known
to
you
that.
forever.
The first time we met, we came to the first Power Exchange Summit.
Oh, wow.
And
So
it was shortly after we had met. And that
Uh-huh.
was the first event we gone to. It was what, maybe 2 months we'd been together?
Yeah, not very long.
Oh, okay.
And that's
All
when
right,
we
so that
first
was-
met you, when you first did that, and we were first coming out.
Yeah.
And I think the first Power Exchange Summit was 2012.
So that's
I
right
think-
there
Yeah,
in that
that does
range. But my actual question is, people go through a lot of changes in
Oh, yeah.
13 years,
Yep.
right? And managing it with one person is challenging enough, but when you manage it with, you've got 2 and 3 people in the household, is it particularly, is that add to the complexity as people grow, and not even your own growth, but the people around you as they're growing and changing? It feels like it would be an opportunity for a lot of conflict when you have that many growing people in the same household. Is that the case?
There's a lot, I don't know, I hate to call it that we compromise, but I mean, and I'll just say this, in the 13 years that Rickie has gone through a lot of variations and is at some degree of transition, and like was kind of fully retired for a hot minute and then went back to doing
Mhm.
something very part-time, and now somehow got suckered into working all the time. So that was a change, and we've had lots of babies. He's had
Sure.
lots of grandbabies.
Grandbabies.
And
Okay.
he's very open with his family, so they know what's going on. I'm very open with my family and close friends. I've always lived my life very uncensored. I've been married one other time before. I won't call it an open marriage, but I was free to do what I wanted. He was not.
Hmm,
Mhm.
And
okay.
it wasn't a cuckold situation because didn't want any part of it. So for me, I'll just say, is for me to be in this situation isn't a far stretch, because I've always kind of lived my life like that. I love who I love and I want to be with them, and that's kind of it. I know it sounds weird to some people, but that's kind of how it is. So with all of us, though, there's just been a lot of life that's happened. You know, I've had
Sure.
my brother, now my elderly parents are both ill. I've had cancer. Ryan's had cancer. Steve's had heart issues. I mean, we're aging people. And I will tell you, I don't know how we do it sometimes, how we maneuver stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I will go places with Rickie by ourselves, like we'll go away for a weekend. Occasionally I do that with Steve. I did that at the beginning a lot with Ryan, but now not so much. You know, and we take occasionally, well, that big fetish affair thing that happened outside Cincinnati, that was the first time in a long time all 4 of us did something.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
And we first went to see the eclipse. So we were gone together like what, 8 days? 7,
Wow.
8 days. So that was a long time. And you know, it was okay.
See, and that's great, because that leads me into my next question.
Can I say something real quick on that first?
Oh, please, yeah, absolutely.
The glue that holds us all together is April. Our attraction to her is what keeps the rest of us kind of in check.
Awesome.
Nice.
So
Nice.
we don't want to injure that, so we work out whatever we have to work out.
Okay. So I got 2 more questions for you. This first one is for Steve. I'm going to ask you, because I hear from Ma that you're the easy person to get the real stuff out of.
That's
So
right.
what is the worst part of this polyandry situation?
Oh, boy.
Put you on the spot.
Well, absolutely. And you know, of course, I can only answer for me. I'm generally, believe it or not, in this kind of household, a solitary person. And it is very tough for me to maneuver around 3 other people.
Sure.
Everybody is going to have little personality conflicts, and I just have to walk eggshells sometimes. But exactly what Rickie said, as long as we're doing some semblance of keeping April happy, then that kind of keeps me on the straight ahead path.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Good goal to have.
So one last question for you, if you don't mind. And this question is for everybody. And I'm going to start with you, Rickie, and then I'm going to go Steve, then I'm going to go April. That's so you know what's coming. Starting with you, Rickie, what is the one piece of advice that you would share with somebody who's getting ready to get started in a polyandrous household?
Oh boy, I guess you need to have some acceptance and tolerance of those personality differences that come up, like Steve was talking about. You've got to somehow manage to not let those conflicts affect the relationship with Miss April.
Okay, thank you. Steve, same question. Advice for people getting ready to get started in a polyandrous relationship.
0 expectations. You have to know what you're going into, but you cannot try to micromanagement. You really have to live it on the fly.
Excellent. And April, same question. What piece of advice for people getting started in a situation like yours?
Yeah. Not yet, Rickie. He's like, don't do it. No, you know what? You have to be very secure in yourself and in the people that you trust and love. Because if this all goes south, you still need to have family, friends, people in your corner. I'll just say is for me, this is something you can't just wake up one day and just totally commit to. And you have to understand that there's going to be bleed over, and people, whether you want them to or not, might find out about this. And you've got to be prepared for questions, because people will ask them. If you're not prepared to kind of live your life out loud, don't do it.
Great advice. Also, probably don't jump on a podcast unless you want people to ask you questions about it, like we just did. April, when you're not in the midst of all this, you've got a bunch of other stuff going on. What else do you have going on? Like, for example, the longest running ...
Right now, I have the longest active running femdom event in the Chicagoland area. It's the Midwest Femdom group. You can find us on FET. You can find us on Instagram. There's some Twitter link thing that's not real clear because it's, Twitter, X, whatever, cuts it down. Then we've just started back up doing a trans all night. Caveat for my events that I run is they're all inclusive. So if you were to come to something run by the Midwest Femdom group, it's all inclusive, meaning the main rule is no male dominance at the event. So female could be cis female, a trans female. It can be actually a non-binary person. I'm fine with that. It's just, it could be anywhere on the LGBTQ plus spectrum is fine, just no male dominance. And when it comes to the trans all, again, it's mainly for trans people, trans men or women, non-binary people, cross-dressers, because that's another section of people who kind of add into that, and their admirers.
Excellent. We appreciate all the efforts that you're doing, and we appreciate all the information you've given us on the podcast tonight. Hang out uncomfortably with us for just another couple of minutes while we wrap this thing up. And I actually think we have a question for you coming up a little bit later. Okay. Dawn, that is a lot of events going on, and we're going to be in some of those places at some of those times.
We are. So where we are going to be in person in a couple of weeks, we will be in Ohio
and Chicago,
Kansas City,
Arizona,
and finishing up the year in Minnesota.
You can keep up with all the events, book news, discounts, and more via the Erotic Awakening newsletter.
And get your EA shout out like Giggles in Ohio.
And Kidda in Ohio.
Head over to eroticawakening.com and subscribe today.
So Dawn, back on episode 699,
I think it was.
We were sharing a meme, and we were sharing that it didn't make sense. We couldn't get it.
Because
And
we were talking about the fetish bukkake, and people had put out that stormtrooper meme, and it's stormtroopers behind the princess.
and it's Princess Padme. I had to look that up.
Okay. So, but it says before bukkake, and then the same exact picture on the bottom that says after bukkake. And I'm like, what the hell? I
Yes,
just don't
neither one of us
get
got
it.
that.
We've got the most response from our listeners, like ever,
Yes, we have
on this, letting us know what it meant. Thank you.
and we both thought it as funny as fuck once we figured out what it was. So what it was, for those that may not be aware, is that the stormtroopers are so well known for being such rotten shots that after bukkake, she's still totally clean.
And once it was explained, I was like, oh, I get it. And then laughed my ass off. So sometimes it is funnier after the explanation.
Yes, absolutely. Dawn, one of the questions that I saw on one of the different sites recently was, hey, where can I find some ethical BDSM porn? And I never got past the first answer, because the first answer, everyone just kept echoing the same answer over and over again. Do you ever watch porn on kink.com?
I have watched porn on kink.com.
And one of the reasons that people say that it is ethical, the most ethical BDSM porn, is they really like the fact that, and I don't know if the videos you've seen, but the videos I've seen, even though during the video they're doing some of it, of course, is some really hardcore BDSM stuff, and a lot of times involves sex and all this other stuff. Often the people that are involved will have before and after video interviews. And you can see that they're sharing what they're expecting out of the experience. They're going in with eyes open, but then they're also sharing after the fact how much they enjoyed the experience.
Yeah.
And that really helps to solidify that even if what you're watching is some kind of a evil sort of thing where the person is
Or
crying,
boot stomping or
Yeah.
anything like that. Yeah, you're right. You get to hear them before the scene and after the scene, and they are usually bedraggled. Is that how you say that? Bedraggled,
yeah, whatever.
looking at the end. They've been through a really hard scene with a smile on their face.
Yes, and a nice fluffy robe.
Yes. So there's someone in kink.com that the first time I saw him in one of the videos, I'm like, oh, I know him. He was one of the presenters at one of the events that we went to, and he walked into the house of the producers where we were all sitting around having snacks or something. And he walked in and he was so tired. He saw me sitting on the floor, didn't know me, saw me sitting on the floor, came over, sat, put his head in my lap, and fell asleep. I wasn't so sure what to do, so I let him sleep. He looked very tired. And then I knew I had heard that he was part of kink.com, but then I saw him in the video and I kind of fangirled. I'm like, I know him.
You did indeed. Dawn, the kink of the day is Bastinado, which is the caning of the feet, the soles of the feet.
Yes.
So, April, anyone at your house enjoy the Bastinado?
Ryan, all the time, like actually probably would just let me do that constantly.
Is it with the cane or a paddle or anything?
I'll like use my hand, paddle, canes, whatever.
And
It
it
doesn't
is,
matter.
it's fascinating to me because this fetish, the Bastinado fetish, one of the first house parties I went to, I mean, so brand new, right? Everything was brand new. And I walked in and someone was having that done to their feet, but it was being done as a punishment. And I saw that and I'm like, oh, hell no. Red, don't ever. I'm not into tickling. So therefore I didn't think I was into feet to begin with. So that has been on my hard limit list for a very long time. And then we were teaching sensual spanking at the Space in Columbus. And I was knelt over the spanking bench, so the bottoms of my feet were right there. And Dan asked the crowd, okay, so we've showed you butt, we've showed you boobs, we've showed you, the naughty bits, how you can spank all of that. Where else would you spank? And someone's like, have you ever spanked the bottom of her feet? And Dan's like, well, no, I haven't. And I don't think it registered in his head that there was a reason
Right.
that he hadn't. So he spanked my feet, and I was like, oh, hell. Why have we not done this before? Because Dawn put it on our hard limit list. And we haven't followed that path really, but it's still there. So maybe we should have talked about that as one of our fetishes on the other show that we haven't tried, but probably should.
I feel like we've tried it.
Really? I don't.
Well,
because April just talked about it and my feet got a little tingly and I'm sitting here going,
well, hey, Rickie, guess what I'm doing as soon as I'm done recording this podcast? Apparently, Ricky's feet. Be a part of the Erotic Awakening Podcast community. You can support us on Patreon and get early access to the podcast, a free version of the audiobook Polyamory Toolkit, free ebooks, discounts on monthly Zoom classes, member-only Discord access, and more.
Find all the goodies at patreon.com/erotic awakening today.
Help others find us. Take a moment to support the podcast.
Rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
Or just tell your friends.
Join the conversation with us and other listeners. Use the links from the Erotic Awakening website for our growing Discord channel.
And feel free to reach out to us.
Contact us with questions, podcast comments, or just to say hi.
We are Dan and Dawn on FetLife.
And Erotic Awakening on Instagram.
Or just email us at dananddawn@eroticawakening.com.
Bye, Dan.
Bye, Dawn.
Bye, April.
Bye,
Bye,
Rickie.
Bye.
Bye,
Steve.
Steve.